Welcome to the first SheHelms Sailing podcast. Today I'm speaking with Sadie Johnson about her journey into sailing, boat ownership, and the realities of learning along the way. Sadie lives in California. She is comparatively new to sailing and has only recently bought her own boat. We talk about the steep learning curve that often comes with owning a boat and the importance of supportive sailing communities. Hello. My name is Jojo Pickering. I'm a professional skipper and RYA Yachtmaster instructor. I'm very excited to be hosting our first podcast. SheHelms Sailing is a women-centred sailing community exploring seamanship, confidence, culture and life at sea. Here I'll be sharing interviews with women sailors from different backgrounds and experiences. I hope you will tune in and enjoy. Tomorrow I'll be flying to the south of Spain to do some own boat tuition before heading to Bergen to skipper an all-women's sailing trip with 59 North Sailing. If these conversations sound interesting to you, please do share them with others, subscribe to the SheHelms newsletter and explore the wider SheHelms community. Very welcome aboard. Hi Sadie, it's really great to meet up with you here today. Maybe we should start with you telling us where you are and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, it's so nice to be here with you too, Jojo. I am Sadie Johnson. I am in the great city of Long Beach in the great state of California. I moved to Long Beach about 5 years ago. Before that, I was living in LA proper, which I also loved, and have been sailing in the Southern California area. So I started in Marina del Rey. I still do a lot of sailing in Marina del Rey, but when I moved down here to Long Beach, I started sailing more in Long Beach, and I got a boat, which is also here in Long Beach, which is really nice. It's a fun little ocean community. We have the Port of Los Angeles and Long Beach just kind of right next door to us. So there's a lot of seafaring in different ways here in Long Beach.
That sounds great, Sadie. It really does. So when did you start sailing and what made you start?
So I actually, this month, April 2026, is my 10-year anniversary of starting to sail. Yeah, so that's really exciting. And I had always wanted to learn to sail and learn to scuba dive. I grew up landlocked in Colorado in the mountains. And there was a little reservoir where people would sail, and my dad was actually on a sailing team for a regatta team for I think 2 or 3 summers. But I'm just old enough that in the 90s it was still, that culture of everybody from the sailing team got to bring their sons on board for a pleasure sail one day, but there was no invitation for the daughters to get on board, which is what it is. So yeah, growing up, I always was fascinated by the ocean. I thought I wanted to be a marine biologist for a really long time. I always knew that I wanted to kind of have some connection to the ocean in some way or another. When I moved out to Los Angeles, I actually moved out for work because I work in the film industry. And I worked with some directors that had boats, and they said, "Yeah, come on out for a day sail." So I got to do some sailing. And I looked into getting involved in sailing in my 20s, but it was really expensive. And, taking classes was expensive. But then on top of that, once you took classes, you still had to rent boats all the time and things like that. So I didn't think it was in the cards for me at that time. And then 10 years ago, my boyfriend at the time got me this Groupon for an introduction to a sailing club. And we actually went out for a day sail together and we just fell in love with it. So we joined the club, which was great because then we had access to their calendar, and the club we joined is set up so that they have day sales, 5 days a week. And you, as a club member, you just sign up for day sales so that you can go out and kind of get consistent time on the water and find out if you really like sailing. Learn as you go at your own pace, which was really nice. And then when we broke up, he got the Burning Man camp, I got the sailing club, and we both think we got out with the better end of the deal. So yeah, I'm still part of that club, but I did have bought my own boat since then.
That's amazing. What a lovely story. And it is true. There is this real barrier of cost for sailing,
Yeah.
and that sailing clubs make a huge impression on helping people bridge that gap. So, when did you buy your boat? And tell me about that. That sounds really exciting.
It is really exciting. It's been a bit of a roller coaster. So I bought my boat about 2 years ago. Yeah, a year and a half. So I bought it in like September of 2024. Um and she's a Cal 34 from 1976. Her name is Eileen. She's absolutely de delightful. If you're not familiar with Cal boats, they are designed by Bill Lapworth, and the most famous of the Cals is obviously the Cal 40, which was designed specifically for the Transpac. Um and in fact, just last year, Allie Bell won the Transpac in her Cal 40 from, I think that's a 78, or no, maybe a 75 Cal 40. So Cals are just great boats. And the Cal 34 is, a downsized version of, I think, the Cal 40 hull. So it's a like a coastal cruiser. People have circumnavigated on it. Um, but she likes to go, moderately fast in light winds. So it's really nice going out, and we have 5 knots and I'm going 4 knots. So she loves to move, and her maneuverability is really nice and really really peppy. So she's a really fun boat to sail. In fact, I got to take my captain and our friend out for a day sail yesterday, and it's just a really fun boat to sail. So she's great. She's great. Boat ownership has been a bit of a roller coaster for me. I'm really glad I didn't like get into sailing by just like buying a boat and figuring it out while I went, because I think I would have been scared off. It's been a lot of dealing with anxiety of like, I don't know how to work on engines. I'm getting comfortable with so many different things. I'm glad that I had a number of years of sailing experience where I fell in love with sailing before buying the boat, um, because I don't think I would still have the boat. Frankly, I think I would have been scared off probably in the first 6 to 9 months. But she's been very patient with me. She's great. I adore her. She's a lot of fun. My dog adores her, which is so important. So she's a great boat. She's a lot of fun. And it's really nice because part of the anxiety, I wake up in a dead panic in the middle of the night, being like, especially in the first 6 months, being like, oh my God, what if I left a through hull open and she's sinking? What if something's wrong? And because of my condo is like only a mile from the marina, I can get up in the middle of the night. I can go check on the boat. I can get back, and then I can drive home. And from like when my head comes up off the pillow to when it goes back down on the pillow is like 30 minutes. So it's perfect. It's really nice. So yeah. So it's been a wild ride, but it's been great.
It is true. As skippers, we are expected to know so much, not just how to maneuver and sail a boat, but how to look after it and all the key aspects of that. And it's a huge mountain to climb. And I think that's amazing what you've done. So do you feel like the sort of the maintenance aspect has been the biggest tricky bit and anxiety, or taking it out on your own, has that also been an anxiety for you?
So the majority of the anxiety has been like maintenance, engine. She had transmission issues when I first got her, so I had to have the transmission rebuilt kind of as soon as possible. So I knew that the transmission, it was an issue. Frankly, I know that the transmission is still not like, a great transmission. She doesn't like to go in reverse very much. Um, so that's been the biggest issue. But because I got the boat to do more solo sailing, there has been anxiety with getting in and out of the slip by myself. Um, because of the prevailing winds on my slip, like there is times where it's like I have no helm control. Like she doesn't reverse well, and she, with the winds, like if I go early in the morning, it's easy peasy. Like I have no issue with it, and I've taken her in and out of the slip by myself a few times, and it's no problem if I leave her early in the morning. But if I leave like midday when the wind is starting to pick up, the wind just loves to like throw my nose down and kick my stern to port and like put me in the position where I can't get out of the finger. So that has definitely been an anxiety. And also like part of that too is like kind of battling with the idea of like being a perfectionist. I wouldn't say I'm a perfectionist because I don't need things to go perfectly, but I do try to always get to a point where it's like I like to start at a decent level kind of right out of the gate. And having these issues has been really humbling, really a lot of learnings really quickly, but they've all been very necessary. Like, I think in a weird way, I was talking to one of my doc neighbors who has been the best kind of support for me. Every time I have an issue, she just says, "Sweetheart, you got to remember when you come back from a sail and the vessel is not hurt and the people are not hurt, that is a successful sail. Like everything else, like is aesthetics or, pride." So she kind of constantly reminds me of that, which thank goodness, because I genuinely think like without her and other people like her that have been supportive, um, I think it would have this has experience would be a lot more difficult than it has been. But those humbling moments are also really important for me. Like I had something a few weeks ago where I completely lost helm control and like we just could not get into a position where we could get out of our finger. And like I ended up kind of just fixed against the back of the marina and but fortunately like there was tons of people from the marina there to help, push us and guide us so that we could get out and like no damage to anything. Everybody was fine. And every single person as I was going out said, "Don't worry, we've all been there. It happens to every sailor." Right? So the sailing community, especially on my dock, has been very supportive, and that's been really nice because like that's the only way to kind of get through it. Nobody ever goes anywhere alone, right? We all have like a team of support behind us.
Absolutely, and if you didn't have that, I suspect it would be a lot harder. And I'd also like to say that manoeuvring under power in and out ports is always the hardest thing,
It's the
because
worst.
that's when you're going to bump into something.
Exactly. Well, and it's funny that that day a few weeks ago where we'd kind of lost home control and we needed help from people on land, I got a text from my friend who I mentioned before, who I lovingly tell her she's the mayor of Z Dock, where we all keep our boats. She texted me and was like, "If just wanted to let you know to make you feel a little bit better. I know you aren't happy with the way you got out of the slip today, but somebody else full on rammed another boat." In the marina. And I was like, "Oh my God." She's like, "So you're doing great, kid." Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Absolutely. The most important thing is the boat safe and are the people safe? And it
Yeah,
doesn't have to be the most beautifully efficient and nicely maneuvered situation,
totally.
as long as you're home or you've got out safely. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Having said that, something that we forget to learn about nowadays, because lots of boats maneuver so well under power, and I come from more of a traditional background, in the use of anchors and the use of warping. So
Yeah.
you can actually move the boat with lines to a better position to get off, or you can use lines to somewhere else to help you when you know you're not going to be able to pull yourself off. I don't know if I'm describing that very well, and I don't know if it would help you.
Well, yes, you did describe that very well. I wouldn't be able to leverage an anchor in my marina. But like with dock lines, I was talking with my friends that I took out sailing yesterday. We had just it was a thing of beauty us coming out of the slip yesterday. And one of the nice things was my one of my friends that I brought out yesterday is actually the captain of the sailing club where I am a member. And he was using a boat hook to push us off to get a little bit of momentum and kind of prevent the nose from pushing into the dock where how it usually the wind usually likes to do. And then I kind of kept more control on the starboard stern line, and it made all the difference. Um, and then, because I want to do more solo sailing, part of me too was like, all right, how am I going to do this when it's solo? And I need to remind myself to not get ahead of myself. It's baby steps. So knowing like, and yesterday the wind was fairly sizable, knowing that all right, we know the maneuver when the wind picks up and, is going to try to work against us and, spin us around and prevent helm control. Knowing that and practicing that is kind of the first step. And then I can start thinking about it with solo sailing and doing it solo. And the other thing that I have to remember is just because I'm leaving the dock by myself doesn't mean I can, you know, that I can't reach out to a neighbor on the dock, say, hey, can you give me a little push and maybe do a little bit of control on this on my bow while I'm backing out? Because there's always somebody on my dock. So
What strikes me, Sadie, is that from what you're saying is there are lots of women sailors and women skippers on your dock and with you locally, and that's fantastic.
it's fantastic. And more importantly than having a lot of badass women sailors on my dock, we have a lot of really good, enlightened, helpful men. I have not had, that's not true. I've had one man on the dock mansplain to me, but we probably have 50 boats on our dock. And like for that's a pretty good, average. Because that is one of the things that I've been thinking about recently is like, we have all these women that are coming up and are so supportive of each other. And we have a lot of men that are super supportive of women, but we also have, I wouldn't say an equal number of men, but we still have a decent number of men that are not supportive. Um, and I was talking about that with somebody in the women's sailing community out here in Southern California recently, where it's like, you know, the we want to start finding a way to celebrate the supportive men as opposed to just like calling out and vilifying the men that aren't supportive and are a bit misogynistic, because all that does is make men double down on their misogyny, right? So if we can find a way to actually like celebrate the men that are being super supportive and encouraging, I think that would maybe entice other men to do a little bit of self-work and make sure that they're being a bit more supportive and encouraging.
When you find the way how to do that, Sadie, I hope you tell me. That's
If you
fantastic. And I agree with you. I think that's absolutely right. And actually one of the things I've got an article that I want to write about that fantastic harbour master in Peterhead last year, because he was great,
Yeah.
wasn't he?
He was great. He was great. And that was a great example of warping when we were leaving the marina in Peterhead, Scotland, and we were just in a position on the dock where it's like we knew that you knew because of how the prop walk works, that if we just threw her into reverse, we would just slam into those rocks. So warping was like, and it was just a thing of beauty. It was so cool seeing the boat just like she was like a ballet dancer coming out of, entering the stage. It was just so cool. Yeah. I wish, because of the boats next to me, I don't know if I can warp as easily. Like I can do a little bit of maneuvering just to keep her straight coming out, but I can't, like the boat, I have boats on both sides of me and they overhang the slip just enough that I don't know how much I could warp. Because in an ideal world, I would go engineless. And I would just say, yeah, I'll warp her out of the slip and then, just raise the main and go from there. But I wouldn't be able to get a slip in a marina in California. And also with all the boats around us, it's not quite as feasible. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I think
that was an awesome experience.
I think engines are quite kind of important. I mean, although I
They are.
know that it's just the whole idea of the purity of not having an engine is great. I think certainly in the modern world, it's and for safety, it is quite a good idea to have an engine.
It's
So,
super
Sadie,
important.
what inspired you? Who inspired you the most in your during your sailing journey?
Oh, I mean, Lynn Party has to be pretty high up there. Um, I read a few of Lynn Party's articles early on, and then I've made my way through her books, and her talking about the simplicity. And she writes a lot about, go small, go now, and they've she and her husband sailed without an engine for many, many years. So I think that's also one of the reasons that it's kind of glorified in my mind, romanticized to be like, oh, engine, not a care, engine free, not a care in the world. But yes, engines are super important. But she has had a way of saying, of like distilling things down and reminding people that I think a lot of times we overcomplicate boats unnecessarily, you know, like I had three different groups of friends, sailing the Gulf of California this past winter, and hearing all of their stories about all of the different boat work that they had to do, and that joke about cruising being boat work in exotic places, and like 95% of it is, engine stuff. So, and I have issues with diesel and fossil fuels in general. So I would like to eventually I would like to repower my boat to an electric engine, especially because I'm not a cruiser, so I can plug into shore power like every day. And, I would have plenty of battery to like go out and spend a week in Catalina and still get back without any issues. So I do think about converting to an electric engine, but I don't ever see a time where I would be completely engineless. I agree that I just don't think it's feasible. Um, but yeah, Lynn Party's definitely one. Ellen MacArthur is also like, I'm a bit of a tree hugger. I recently heard somebody use the phrase sea hugger too. I'm a bit of an environmentalist. So Ellen MacArthur, not only the stories of her circumnavigation, but her starting the Ellen MacArthur Foundation has been an amazing, huge inspiration. Um, and yeah, just some of the people that I've met sailing, just, that people not only that grew up sailing and know, boats like the back of their hands, but people that were like, I know I've met people where they had a horrible experience where they almost lost their lives and they're like, screw this. I want to buy a boat and like not necessarily go off and go cruising, but do things that like feed my soul more. And yeah, so I find a lot of inspiration in those sailors. But really, at the end of the day, I think the biggest inspiration, this is going to sound so cheesy, the biggest inspiration has just been the Pacific Ocean. Like I feel so fortunate to live in Southern California and sail out there and, go out and every once in a while we'll just be, surrounded by one of the biggest megapods of dolphins in the world. Like that's amazing. That's spectacular. Yeah.
It is truly spectacular. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it is a beautiful ocean, and you are in a perfect place, part of it as well, because you've got the islands just offshore and that are reachable without going too far. Um,
Yeah. Which has
um,
been awesome because one of the reasons I want to do more solo sailing, but I also want to explore the islands. And last October, my dad and my brother were able to come out and we were able to rip the band-aid off and go out to Catalina. And we just did one night. And the fact that we could go from my marina to Avalon, Catalina in like 4 hours and spend like a lovely afternoon, have a lovely birthday dinner for my brother. And then the next day, we didn't even get up early or anything like that. And we left and we were back in time to have a lovely dinner, on land at home too. Like I do feel so fortunate because Catalina's right there. And we have the Northern Channel Islands, which are just spectacular, just amazing. So yeah, yeah, I
that's
feel very
fantastic.
fortunate.
I'd love to say a little bit more myself in that part of the world. So, what would you like to have known, Sadie, before you started? If you could go back and tell yourself something from before you started sailing that you think would really help you carry on that journey, what would that be?
One of the, th- I think one of the things, and it's something that might be just top of mind because I'm starting to kind of learn it right now, is like I didn't grow up learning the fundamentals of like engineering and physics and stuff like that. I was really good at biology, but like physics and engineering was not something that I was good at. And learning that I think is super important. And there are a lot of ways that you can start learning the fundamentals. Like God bless YouTube. There are so many channels focused on getting like kids interested in STEM and engineering. And like I've kind of started watching some of those, and like it's amazing like watching those and then being like, we're going to talk about, ratchets today, and like watching that and being like, oh, a light goes off and I'm like, that's how my winch works. Like, all of those things, everything works together, because like when you actually look at a boat and break everything down into like its component parts, it's not rocket science. I mean, maybe it kind of is, because really at the end of the day, rocket science is broken down into component parts that are also like basic machines, right? So if I could have started my exploration of like middle school level engineering and physics and stuff like that, engineering and STEM, back when I first started sailing, I think it would have made me a lot more comfortable with boat ownership. That's for sure. And I think it just helps with like how you think about sail shape and trim and, angle of attack and all that stuff. Yeah, I think like as weird as it is, like get on YouTube, pretend you're a 12-year-old and watch some, YouTube videos about STEM, because I do think that is making a big difference in how I kind of think about things right now.
I think that's a great tip. Thank you very much. But yes, I mean, I always think that you don't actually learn really about something on a boat until it goes wrong. And so long as you're there when it's fixed, that's when you start learning about it. In
Yeah.
my mind, that's what works for me anyway. So, last question, Sadie, because we should probably bring this to an end today. Although I could talk to you for ages, is what's your plans for the season?
My plan for the season is just to get more time under sail on my boat, and I want to get out to Catalina at least twice this summer. If I can get out to Catalina twice this summer, I'll be really happy with that. Because the beautiful thing also about Southern California, I can go out to Catalina all year round. So if I can do Catalina twice this summer, then it would give me more comfort and, give me the option of going out throughout the winter. And that's when there are no crowds, which is lovely. So that's my goal, is just to do more day sails and do like 2 trips out to Catalina on my boat, on my boat.
Well, good luck on that, and hopefully
Thank
maybe
you.
you'll come and tell us how it went, because I'd love to know.
Yeah, I would love to share.
Okay, well, thank you ever so much then, Sadie.
Thank you, Jojo.
It's great talking to you.
Great talking to you.
Thanks for listening to the SheHelms Sailing Podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, then please subscribe to the podcast and the SheHelms newsletter. Very welcome aboard, and I hope you join us again for future conversations. Bye for now.